Before this video begins, straight up, I'm not editing this. This is going to be probably just audio only, so I'm not necessarily going to put any type of effort when it comes through it. I might put like various weird pictures in the video just because, but other than that, that's about it. But mainly, I wanted to discuss basically the lolly debate when it comes down to things, because that was something that people were talking about, and people were just kind of just interested to see how that was going to go. And if I'm being honest, it didn't really solve anything. Like, I'll be perfectly honest with you. Like, either from both sides, you know, like, and I'm not trying to crap on the person that is for lolly or anything like that, but this debate really didn't do much of anything except make it even harder to find out who is right or who is wrong when it comes to it, or like which side you should be okay with and which side you shouldn't be okay with. It didn't really solve a lot of things. But that's why I'm here, to kind of give you a little bit of a take on it, because why not? Also, I also learned that there is some troubling nonsense that came down when it comes to two accounts, I think. So apparently correct me if I'm wrong, because I heard this and I only just briefly read it, but from what I understand, there was also recently like a incident where a minor ended up eating themselves because their partner was like a lolicon, and then someone didn't reprimand them, and so they harassed the minor that was with that partner, so they end up eating themselves. We don't know if it's actually like something that is real or it's like something that actually has happened or something like that. We do not know, but at the same time, if this is real and someone did lose their child, this is all the more reason to talk about it, honestly, because like, you mean to tell me you would harass someone so far to make them want to yeet themselves? That doesn't make it any type of sense. And it just goes to show, again, kids, remain in your spaces. That is not with the adults. You shouldn't even be online to begin with, honestly. But do people listen? No. And this is exactly why we have things like this that happen. And then people talking about they don't want to touch this with a 10-inch pole. Nux. This is exactly why we should talk about it, honestly. Because this is probably not the first time this has happened. This is probably not the first time that someone ended up eating themselves because of harassment, much less lolly stuff. So when it comes down to things, yes, this should be talked about. Even if you don't like it, you should still bring it up. But that's pretty much outside of what I heard when it comes to outside this debate. So when it comes down to things, first, number one, and this is the most crucial thing ever when it comes to the whole thing when it comes to this debate, and to lollies in general when it comes to this type of situation. If someone is trying to debate you and they are not an anime fan, or they don't have any type of anime knowledge or no type of knowledge on the topic that they are going into, do not debate these people. I will tell you this 10 million times. I will tell you this 5 million times. Why did I go down? I don't know. Point is, don't debate these people, because majority of the time they're going to go out their way to try to reverse psychology your ass, or they're going to try to go ahead and try to make some nonsense go happen with the debate. Basically, you're talking to a brick wall that cannot comprehend anything or don't want to comprehend anything. And when it comes down to things, it just makes it harder for you to kind of understand, or it's going to make it harder for people to understand where you're coming from. It's just not good. Don't debate people that's like this. Don't. This is about the third damn time I've seen people debate people that has no knowledge of anime or anything like that, and you do it anyway. I know you might get mad at the situation or the person that you're trying to debate, but at the same time, don't do that, because again, it just makes things harder for the entire subject of it, and it just gets drowned out in more nonsense, and people are not really going to care, just kind of came to see the spectacle and not really learn anything when it comes to it. So that's like one thing. So again, if you see someone like this and they tell about something, let's debate, don't accept that invite, especially if they don't know anything. And if they tell about something, oh, you're scared. No, you're not scared. You just don't want to keep going out your way to keep talking to a brick wall, because that's essentially what you're gonna get. I'm not gonna debate somebody that doesn't even know anything about the subject and is just going about it on an emotional way. That's just not how it is. And also one thing, and again, I'm not trying to rag on a person that was supporting lolly and stuff like that, but I really wish that they were better at speaking English a little bit more, because people in debates will use like your lack of, I would say, like maybe like your rough accents like against you, because you can't speak as well as the other person. And that's like actually like a thing that I've seen done multiple times in multiple debates. And when it comes down to things, it just doesn't make your case any, like, it doesn't make your case supportable. Not because what you're saying is false, but but how you're talking and like the accent that you have makes it hard for people to listen to at times. And then when you do stutter and then like not necessarily say a lot of things that, you know, that might be easy for people to understand, yeah, people are going to go to the other side and understand the person that is talking like actual fluent in their language. So when it comes down to things, that's like the only thing, and that's something that's probably just going to be something that's like you have to learn within years of time of speaking a language. But yeah, really wish that we had like some fluent English kind of going through there. Not saying that it's like the person's fault that it is that way, but at the same time, it's just like, damn, I really wish we had like someone that could speak fluent English to actually kind of come through in this debate. Not saying that they were doing a bad job or anything, because they did bring us some points that was pretty good and no one really mentions, but still kind of wish we had someone that could speak a bit better English. That's all I'm trying to say. Not trying to be mean or anything. Alright, and with that being said, now we can start the video. About 6 minutes in. Anyway, when it comes down to things, I took notes and wanted to see different types of talking points when it comes to the video, and basically I wrote them all down to kind of get some kind of clarification on some of these terms and topics. Some of them are easier than others. Others might be a little bit harder, and there's one question here that actually is a lot harder than probably any other question when it comes to Lolly that even I had to take a little bit of a minute to kind of figure out. So when it comes down to things, it is, you know, a bit rough in some places. Now, if you have a better suggestion or you have a better idea of how to go about a certain topic that you maybe didn't like what I said, then please comment in below. This is like a whole support through when it comes to like Lolly and Lolicon and stuff. Like, let me know if I got something wrong. Do not be afraid to comment, or like if you have some better ideas, please let me know, because I'm just one dude. I can't tackle everything, honestly. So when it comes down to things, I'm just doing the best I can. So without any further ado, let's actually get it. Now, when the debate first started, the person that was against Lolly basically went out their way to be like reading the definition of Lolicon by Google, which, first of all, that is not being chilling. That is not the most supreme move of all time. It's really not. Anybody can just Google search and just do that. And then under that, they basically try to figure out the definition of it, which, you know, obviously Google being Google said it's some pet shit and some other stuff that is not necessarily accurate. But then they continue on to be like, well, you know, that's what Google says, that's like the main source. This literally, when I heard that, I ain't gonna lie, my brain went to Genshin, because I was thinking like, bruh, this is like how people were with the Akasha. They just believe what's face value on the website of the Akasha. Are you serious? You really taking face value when it comes to Google? That proves how much research you didn't do when it comes to that topic. Anyway, when it comes down to things, and then he also explained that, you know, Lalisa came from that one Russian book, and then how he was basically kind of claiming that Lolicon and Lalisa are basically the same freaking term, which, no, because Lalisa is referring to a lot of things, honestly. It can refer to the book, it could refer to a outfit style and choice, it could refer to, yes, a younger person, but that's not like the one clear thing that it refers to, honestly. And then Lolicon, it refers to the one whole thing, which is like the attraction towards lolly characters, or like have the complex of it, and you know, they did cover that. If Lolita and Lolicon were actually like, you know, the same thing, they actually meant the same thing, why would they need two different terms to say the same word? It doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense, because, you know, Lolita has all those other terms, and then Lolicon is like a clear definition of what it is when it comes to a certain thing. Maybe in the eyes of the person that made that Lolita book, maybe they were referring to real people, potentially, because obviously anime didn't exist back then, not at that point when that book was made. So potentially, maybe they were thinking like a relationship with a real person like that, and maybe that's where their brain was going, and you know, that's how that we're going with that type of book. But still, it doesn't necessarily mean that that is like the accurate term and terminology when it comes to Lolita and and equal it to Lolicon. That just doesn't work that way. So I don't necessarily know what type of comparison you were trying to make, but that is not it. Just because a word might look the same or maybe even have somewhat of a similar meaning, maybe some shape and form, that doesn't necessarily mean it is the same term. It's really not. Because for all we know, the man could be on some ped stuff himself, honestly, that the person that made that book. We don't necessarily know, and probably will never know, unless there's some, essay or something that's out there existing that saying that that person was actually something weird of a man. So I wouldn't necessarily be surprised, but still, it's not the same term. One part of the debate that really went over my head, but also I really didn't care about when I was going back and trying to understand it, was the scientific research when it comes down to it. As people know, and as he called out, the person that was against Lolicon even called out, was that there is no scientific research that exists that links lollies and pets together. Basically, like, if you read this Lolicon book or something like that, you'll end up doing something to an actual kid or something like that, which, there's no real world research that exists that says that would be a link, because, it really shouldn't be anyway. But still, there is no real research when it comes to it. But he did end up saying the evidence of absence is not the absence of evidence, which I always hear that word, especially when it comes to the Boondocks, if y'all watch that show. But I think that means, like, okay, so let me break this down. So if the evidence of absence, so like, even though there might not be any actual evidence of it, that I guess that means that it might still be out there, even though there might not be like evidence of it. I hate that phrase so much because it's so confusing. But if that's the case, then like basically you're kind of, I guess, assuming that it is a link out there potentially, but you just don't know how to prove it scientifically. Which, if that's the case, then this is just a lot of assumption. Because I guess in some shape or form, I wouldn't be surprised if someone said that, yeah, they looked at some lolly content and then ended up doing something because of it. But that's really more on the person maturity level versus the actual book that it contains it in itself, right? And even when it comes to like the Lolicon side, when they was trying to bring up scientific research too, saying that there wasn't any type of link to, lolly and ped and stuff like that. And then the other dude came through and said like, well, that's just a report, that's not actual scientific research, and they got in a whole fight about that. To be perfectly honest, if I can just say a couple of things. Number one, if there is no link towards it and the party that acknowledges it says that, that's against it, says that there is no link, to be perfectly honest, take both sides of the research material and chuck it out the window. Because if there's no real link between the two, and there's no real research, that's out there when it comes to it, whether you have evidence of it or not, chuck it out the window. Because you can't really use that here if you, like, at least to me, you can't really use that here if you don't necessarily know exactly what is the link, or if evidence of it even exists or not. You can't really use that here, so we're basically wasting time and burning air. So let's not even focus on this scientific stuff, because in reality, all we're doing on either side is assuming that lolly can link to real life, or you could assume that it doesn't link into real life. But because we don't have that evidence and the proper scientific research and stuff, we don't necessarily know. So again, chuck both those out the window, and that will just save us a bunch of time. So personally, when anybody says that, oh, there's some scientific research and stuff like that, hell, I should really just have mentioned this in that Princess Celeste video that we did on that one YouTuber. But definitely, if there's scientific research and that there's no like actual evidence out there, there's no point in bringing it up. I'm gonna be honest with you, because at this point you're just going off of assumptions and emotional damage when it comes to things. Actually, let me rephrase that: emotional damage when it comes to things. So we gotta stop assuming things. But again, not saying that it can't be existing and it's not out there, but I ain't saying that it is out there either. And again, I said this before, you don't need anime to do something horrible and horrendous. You really don't. Tell that to probably the most dangerous predator that's out there, honestly, that's probably in prison. ask them if they had to look at some anime to get themselves going. They probably didn't. They probably just did it because they enjoyed it and they're in jail for a reason. So yes, definitely. When it comes down to things, it just throw scientific stuff out the window. Then the Lolicon mentioned that, I want to say that they were talking about age, and basically they were saying that age doesn't matter. People just want, like, I think they were saying like age doesn't matter when it comes to anime and stuff, and that's true. Obviously, like if you've seen the argument of the 2,000-year-old lolly or the 2,000-year-old Shota boy, or like whatever the hell age you put your character, me being like over 500 years old, or like the new character that's coming into Genshin like in a few days that is like over 100 years old, that been stuck in a freaking puzzle for like who knows how long, and like all these other type of characters that exist. You know good and dang well, anime, games, anything like that, when it comes to things, none of that matters when it comes to age. You can put your character as 1,000,000 years old. Does it matter? No. Ajimu has existed since the universe has began, honestly. Does that make sense? No. But why does she look like this and not like an old piece of shit? I don't know. That's because anime logic, because it does not matter. The only thing I think of when it comes to this, and the reason why people keep bringing this type of stuff up when it comes to age, is that people want something tangible to hold on to say like, well, this character is this age, or this character is like younger, so this is actually some pet stuff. Again, age in anime really doesn't matter. Like, we can discuss this all day and it will never matter, honestly, and you'll be wasting a lot of time trying to talk into some real world logic and sense. There is no real world logic and sense. You cannot put real world logic into anime. You just can't, honestly. And yeah, but basically I think when people bring up ages and stuff, it's like they just want to hold on to something tangible. That's basically the whole thing, so they can try to, make their statement somehow like a powerhouse or something like that. So yeah, it's really not, honestly. And definitely when I was watching the debate too, there was a lot of time with the dude that was against Lolicon, excuse me. They would like, I remember when they finished their opening statement, they really thought they said some shit. It was like, and yeah, Lolly's in is some head shit, and yeah, I rest my case. Man, he really thought he says. I'm like, but what the hell? That's some confidence right there. That's I don't know what that is, but that's something right there. And then when it comes down to like later on, and I think I mentioned this in my notes somewhere, maybe, but basically he ends up trying to do like some type of almost reverse psychology in a way, and it's like, we see what you're trying to do here. We see what you're trying to do, and unfortunately the person that was supporting Lolicon didn't really have like a great argument against it in some shape or form. So again, it just I ain't gonna lie, if you know stuff about Lolly and stuff like that, and like you really are about that life and subject, you're gonna get frustrated watching this debate. Like, I'm not gonna joke with you. When we come down to things though, on the next piece of tips that I have, essentially the person that was supporting Lolicon like had their whole opening and stuff. They had like reasons why people like Lolly characters and stuff, and some of them were really accurate, that some of them I heard of before, and then there's like a few that I had to kind of question a little bit. And one was like, and I think I wrote it in my notes, it was like, range of attraction in fiction is wide, and people find lollies attractive because of unrealistic traits. And I'm like, do people find people like lollies attractive because of the unrealistic traits? Like, obviously the child part, yes, like that should be like something that's completely separate with reality. Obviously that should not be something that you be attracted to at all. But if you, let's say like a woman has like a flat chest, or like a lolly has a flat chest, you might be attracted to flat-chested women in real life, and that's not necessarily something to be capping on, honestly, or like to be like against in some shape and form, because hell, the first person I liked didn't really have like the biggest chest in the world, but still, nonetheless, I enjoyed them for what they were, not because of the whole body part, but like basically just the personality of the person in general. They just happen to be that, so I didn't really necessarily mind it. But that was a long time ago, and I'll probably never tell you that story until we hit 1 million subscribers. But anyway, point is, you can be attracted to like maybe like a flat chest or like a small booty or something of the sort. Honestly, you can be attracted to those kind of traits in those type of forms. Maybe a short person is something that you like, honestly. Maybe a slightly like an adult that maybe like, might be like immature in a way, if that's what you want. Like, you could be attracted to certain traits that is around like lolly, or like some traits that lollies have in some way. The one trait that you just can't be attracted to is the fact that they're young. That's literally it, honestly. Well, at least in an underage way, because obviously that's trash and you shouldn't do that. But I wouldn't say that there's unrealistic traits that people are attracted to, but I would say that, and I'm not saying that you can't be attracted to the unrealistic traits, because lolly is a moe art style. It is something that is just dripping in fiction, so of course you might be attracted to like the cuteness factor of it, which people have said to me before that they were. And when it comes down to things, it's like many options and many varieties of ways that you could be attracted to it unrealistically. There could be variety of ways that you could be attracted to it realistically. You might like a petite person. You might like that in real life. I'm not here to judge. I'm not necessarily here to, say some nonsense. And if you like that, that's something that you just like. But definitely when it comes down to things, it can be either or. It can be either or in some shape or form. As long as we know what good attraction that you're on, the one attraction that you should avoid. Not trying to like, but still nonetheless, I'd say both could be, in some shape or form, could be, valid. I already said it, but moe is like a thing that lolly is a part of too, which is like the original reason why lolly even exists. It was a challenge against the yaoi stuff back in the day, and basically people wanted to make some type of thing with female characters, and that's why they have like the moe part, because it's just combining certain art styles to make something new and unique. So you put lolly characters in like more adult-ish type of situations, honestly, and that's kind of where that kind of started from. But when it comes down to things, yeah, like, if we're being perfectly honest, people do like lollies because of the art style too, and the cuteness factor of them, as I said before. So you can't necessarily say that, oh, a lolicon is a ped, because they might not necessarily care for kids and stuff like that. They might just care for it because of an art standpoint. That's also like another thing that people, kind of gloss over, if we're being honest too. Like, a lot of people don't really mention the whole moe thing, but it's important to keep that in play, especially when we're talking about like situations like this. And lastly, we have the final 3 tips, which is kind of a part of the same question, but this is the hardest one, and I'm not necessarily going to lie. When I first heard it, and the lolicon that was against, and the person that was against lolicon had like brought this up, ain't gonna lie, it stumped me for a good chunk of time. And this is the part where I'm like, if you have a better suggestion or idea of how to kind of talk about this, then like leave it in the comments, because this is kind of hard, and I don't know if I'm answering this like correctly or like even doing it justice. But at one point he tried to reverse it onto the lolicon, and basically was like, so lolicon can, like, with the art that it has, it could depict a real life kid when it comes down to things, because I think he was like, what if a picture was based on like a real life kid or something, and like, would it be weird or wrong to like draw it off of that, and then would it like be some type of pet stuff if someone just nutted to that? Like, how would you deal with that? And that's like a hard ass question too, but it's a reasonable question, because that's not nothing new. Because when it comes down to things, we've seen multiple artists that has done like that type of thing that's kind of close to it, or like something that has done it before. Shadbase was definitely like one person that was never really giving a damn about the rules and was just going ham when it comes to it, and then just ruin his whole career when it comes down to things. And like, there's probably other artists that exist too. There's another artist I can't remember the name of, but they done that as well by tracing literal pictures of it, and it's not necessarily a good thing either. And if I remember who that artist is, definitely expect an artist unappreciation video. But yeah, there's that type of stuff actually does exist, and it's unfortunate. And I think that possibility is the reason why there's probably a lot of backlash and pushback when it comes to Lolly in general, because you just don't know exactly what is it referencing or who's drawing what when it comes to it, because it could be literally anything. And on this channel, we brought it up in multiple different ways about where these like real depictions could be leaning towards and stuff. And I said it in AI art too, because some of that AI art looks a little too good and a little too accurate. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some real life references being used in some shape or form, which wouldn't be great if I'm being honest. So, you know, it could happen. Let's break this whole entire thing down, because that's exactly what I have to do here. So, when it comes down to things, Lolly art well, first of all, can Lolly art depict kids? Yes, that's kind of the whole damn point when it comes down to things. Like, and especially since like the whole Vice video too, and with the legal dude that was at the end too, he literally even stated in that video that it's an adult comic that depicts a kid. That's it. But in that type of context, you know, it wasn't like any type of reference to a real life person or anything. It was just literally a comic that came from the imagination, which should be literally everything. So yeah, it can do that. That is one thing we cannot necessarily deny here. But how do we know it's not really based on a real person? That's like a big question, and that's something that we can't really necessarily know off the bat. Now I remember him saying that, like, oh, if someone knew, well, like if someone drew like someone's daughter or something like that and put them into like pictures in some shape and form, like would that be like wrong or stuff? And yes, it would be in a way, because like you're using literally a real life reference to quite literally, you know, make inappropriate content when it comes to your real life kid. Well, here's the way I think it's like really wrong. And again, comment below if you have a better suggestion when it comes to it. But here's where I think where it's really wrong. If you really like take all the features, take all of the like exact same features that the person has and put it into a picture, then yes, I would say that will be pretty jacked up, honestly. Now, here's the thing where I'm gonna say that it might be a bit different and still not really better, but it could be a little bit better, is that because I'm thinking about how people draw Stephanie from Lazy Town, how people draw Hermione from Harry Potter. Like, if you take the character and then you make them into something different, or they don't have the exact same face structure and stuff like that, and like the exact same like everything when it comes to them, if you take like those pictures into somewhat of a, you know, example, you can look at some of them and be like, well, this doesn't look like Hermione, this doesn't look like Stephanie from Lazy Town, and that is making the situation just a little bit better, because it's not exactly one-to-one to the actual person, but at the same time it's still also that, I don't know, it's such a gray area type of thing. And understandably so. We talked about this before on a post, and I didn't necessarily make a video about it because it is kind of hard to kind of talk about, much less it is kind of hard to bring up in a way to say it's okay, because you just can't really say that now, can you? Because if it was literally any other situation, if it was freaking Dora, or like I think Lilo from Lilo and Stitch, or any character like that that was never used in a, you know, real life setting in the first go around, then yes, it will be easy. You can say you loot those characters all day. But when it comes to someone like, let's say, Stephanie from Lazy Town, it's a bit harder because, yeah, that character, you know, was a real person. Like, the concept of that person is not a real person. Like, there's no person like that ever in real life, honestly. But the person that plays that character does really exist. And it's like, how do you kind of go about that, honestly? And it's just, you know, you kind of have to just push and shove with the subject, honestly. There's no real right answer about it, and there's no real like wrong answer to go about it too, at least to me, because again, it's just like really hard about how you could go about it. Because yes, there's obvious parts where it's obviously wrong, but there's obvious parts where, but if you say if it should be banned or something like that, I would have to disagree, because that would mean majority of Lolly would have to be like kind of canned too. But then you also have situations where, you have a lolly character that exists, but it's based off of someone else too. Like, he brought up in the video, like, there was like one VA that was like an Oni lolly character, and that was looking pretty sexy, by the way. And they said they used them and made the VA, basically made that character for that VA. And it's like, so how would you go about it though? In certain instances it's okay, and in certain instances it's just not okay. I don't know. This is really something that's just going to be for personal judgment, I would say. And this is something that you would have to kind of like, I would say, maybe figure out on your own, because really giving people like oh, is this okay or is it not? I don't know. It's a gray area, honestly. This is probably like the biggest gray area in the entire debate, honestly, out of everything. Like, because is it problematic? Sure, it can be. Is it like something that should be bannable? I would hold that thought before you say that. But I don't know. This is like something that I would say that this is like, you would have to figure out on your own, like, for sure. This is something even I can't really answer. So yeah, if you think it's wrong, you think it's wrong. If you think it's right, if you think it's right. If you like it in a gray area, you're just gonna have to accept it in the gray area. It's part of lolly that I would say is probably gonna stick around, and probably it's going to be in existence forever. And it's just part of lolly that we're just kind of gonna have to accept if we're being realistic with it, with how people draw and stuff. So it's kind of like a gray area. It's kind of like the 3D computerized lolly models that kind of exist. Like, yeah, they exist. Some of them are more realistic than others, and some of them look very, very real, even though they're not. But still, when it comes down to things, it's such a gray area, and it's such like a weird place that it's like up to personal judgment, honestly. So when it comes to that part, I would say that's gonna be up to you, whether you like it or not, or you think it's fine or you don't think it's fine. That's kind of where I just ended with that, honestly. And the last part of it is definitely the part where he said, if someone draws a real life kid and then put them into this scenario, is it wrong? Yes, obviously. Now, I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. The way I would say, like, and I think the way he kind of like phrased it was like, if someone draws like a person and put them into like a picture and then put it out there and people jerk off to it, like, would that be, how problematic would that be? Very problematic in my personal opinion, because like, if we're really thinking about it, you literally just took someone's kid and then drew them in like this real way, and it's just like, and it like probably copy all their features and everything and just put them in this picture. If you copy the I'm gonna just say this and just be definitive about it. If you take someone's real kid and you draw them into some lewd nonsense, especially if you take them in a way where it's like, you put them into these compromising positions, and it's like feature to feature, like exact body type to exact body type and stuff and like that, I would say that's a problem. And I would say, yeah, that should be like something to be called out on. Which honestly, if someone were to know about this and someone were to know that's a reference that you're actually making, then yes, most likely Lolicons will call you out on it, which they do a lot of the time. Calling people out is what they're supposed to do when they see some foul play at work, honestly. And to be perfectly honest, you shouldn't use a reference of a real person at all when it comes to this type of stuff, unless they're above the age of 18. That is the place I would say. If you use a person that is above the age of 18, then sure, that should be fine. And you're probably thinking, does that change the whole Stephanie statement and stuff like that? No. In a way, I would say, I don't know how I'm kind of going about this. This is a hard subject. I'm saying this is what I'm saying in these comments. I would say if you change the character enough, and I don't know, it's weird because anytime there's like a celebrity and stuff, anytime you have like a celebrity or some type of popular person that's getting looted, somehow that's okay. But then when you have like people that is in that range as well, is also not okay at times, and it's so weird. It's really weird, and the internet kind of did that to themselves. But when it comes down to things, I think if you change, or like if you don't have the reference to like a real person, or like if you change it up a lot and not trying to make it about the real person, instead you're trying to make it about this character that you just made up, then that's passable. But at the same time, it's like, it's still kind of bad. Like, if you just take like an automatic, like, again, a reference from somebody that's like, that's like, one-to-one, reference to reference, then that's bad, and definitely someone should call you out on it, obviously, because it's no better than the person that was tracing actual, real life stuff. But, you know, it's just, again, it's just really hard. This is like a really difficult subject. Even I am kind of struggling with it because I don't know where my brain is at when it comes to it, because there is such a flip-flop when it comes to it, when it comes down to a lot of stuff. Because someone would say, oh, drawing Stephanie is perfectly fine, let's lewd that girl. But when it comes down to things, people could say and we could use the Shadman thing for example, when people were saying that, oh, they shouldn't have lewded like the girl from Logan. That was a weird thing. And then like, but how is that fine for the girl from Logan but not the girl from Lazy Town? That doesn't make a lot of sense. And even if they were using like, things that weren't so one-to-one to the person, how would that work? Like, Lolly is definitely having its gray areas, I'll be perfectly honest with you. But definitely there's some parts of it that's okay in some shape or form, but there's also parts that's not okay. And it's really confusing. And it's, parts of it that just, even something that even I cannot, necessarily really deeply understand or really talk about it. It's just hard. Definitely, that's what I'm saying. I need comments in the comments of this video, because this is just a hard thing. Because if it's like a reference to a real life person, at the same time it's like, yeah, it's kind of bad and it's not right. But also, people on the internet is like, well, if it's like a certain type of person, then it's fine. And it's like, how do we go about this? I don't know, and it's rough. So when it comes down to things, to end basically this entire video, and that was basically the last part of the debate that I really, really struggled on. This whole debate is just hard, right? There's a lot of answers that can be solved easily, but then there's that one like hard answer that's kind of like, if this wasn't like a thing, maybe Lolly could exist easier. And like, but that's such a gray area too, if you really think about it, because a lot of times people will take real life people and then like they will use that for Lolly. But then in an anime perspective, can that even be equal? That's the same thing too, because it's not necessarily coming from like an anime like place or something like that. But then anime can reference real people too. It's hard. It's definitely a difficult question. That is probably, if we can answer that or like figure out some type of reasonable answer when it comes to it, that will be the biggest solving of this entire thing, and that will probably solve a lot of problems when it comes to Lolly in general. But, and it's like, and then sometimes I make me wonder, like, where do we actually take it? Because, like, personally, I don't know. It's like, is certain parts of Lolly, is that like, a branch of it to anime, or it's like something else? I don't necessarily know. Is the 3D stuff like a part of anime, or it's like, is it not? I don't know, because really, if you think about it, Lolly has like a lot of subgenres, and it's like, how do you go about it? And it's like an I don't know situation. Because even though, and the thing is like, because even though you might think it's weird, like, someone else might be saying it's fine, and then I don't really. Again, this is kind of hard, as I said before, because I'll be honest with you. I drew Stephanie in a bikini once, like in a school bikini once. Like, was it anything crazy? No. Was it copying the character and what like the actual person looked like? No, I was actually copying from like a Gentai picture at one point. But was it like? It's kind of hard, definitely. Like, definitely when it comes down to things. I don't know. I really don't know. Because there are some pictures of Stephanie I would say that's fine, because they're not necessarily one-to-one. But then there's also other pictures where it's like, I don't know. And it's like, how do you go about this? So that's probably the biggest question when it comes down to things. If we can solve that, then that will probably solve a lot of problems. But definitely when it comes down to things, this debate was all over the place, and there was a lot of different things that could have been done better on both sides, obviously. But, I still wanted to talk about it because it was important, and it was something that I just think needed to be talked about. because it was just, strange, and really it wasn't done justice when it comes to Lolly in general. Hopefully I answered enough of the questions that I could answer that was like something that people maybe been like confused on, and hopefully I answered it in a way that's like reasonable or something. But like I said, the last question is probably the biggest one because it's rough and it is a giant gray area. Or maybe it might not even be something that could be solved. You might just like it, you might like the reference to like a celebrity or something, you might not. Obviously, if it's a reference to like a real life kid that we don't know anything about, or like just in general, obviously I would say call it out and definitely shun that person. So, but then you also have again other parts of it where it's just like, how do we go about it? So I don't know. I don't know. I would guess it would just be based on how people feel about it, I would suppose, honestly. That's like, and I hate to do that because emotions, but like, how would you go about it? Again, leave it in the comments below because I'm very curious. But this is just basically my guess on how, an opinion on certain things. So hopefully you did understand where I was coming from. Hopefully I wasn't just rambling all over the place, and hopefully you did listen to it. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say for this one. So hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification on your outs. Also follow me on Twitter, and if you'd like to donate to the channel, Patreon is available as well. And until then, it's been your boy Jay, sign off. Have a blessed day.